Hello, hello. Hi, Jenny.
Hi,
So, you just wrote the book. Congratulations.
thank you.
And this book is about, it's a strange combination. It's about climate and cancel culture.
Yes.
But it's not really. Is it fair to say that it's really about how to make any progress? And it's not, if I would say what I would want people to get out of this book, it's about how to think about progress, how to think about ideas to get progress, and how not to be our own enemies when it comes to making progress. So is this a fair sum?
Yes, I love that. Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about, and also your cancel culture approach is not so much shaming somebody from telling a joke somewhere. It's more about kind of what happens when we start using morality as a way to value progress. And I think, and let me know if it's okay to say that, is that you think that all progress is good. And when you start judging things in terms of morality, you say, oh, this progress is better than this progress. I'm not interested in this progress, and so on. And you're basically saying that the morality argument, and it's very clear in the climate world, is basically reducing progress. What a shame.
Yes, exactly. We are forgetting what the results are that we want from this movement.
That's right. What we're here for. So you give an example from carbon credits.
Yes.
So let's start with what is carbon credits.
So if we emit a ton of CO2, and we just use that loosely, so equivalent of carbon, a ton of carbon,
And
you
we here is a company. Company X is
correct.
emitting a ton of carbon. Yeah.
Correct. So they emit a ton of carbon and they cannot reduce it today because they've got their lights on and they're driving to work, whatever the action might be that's emitting that ton of carbon. They can then invest in a project that will either avoid another ton of carbon being released or remove a ton of carbon from the atmosphere right now through
Well,
nature or technology.
yeah.
So it's a way to compensate for emissions by investing in climate projects outside of your own emissions or your own cause.
So you could say I'm emitting a ton, but I will plant some trees to compensate for it. Or you could say I will pay somebody else who is going to emit a ton less.
Correct.
So you're basically saying that I'm going to, like, the purest way is to stop producing carbon, but instead I'll either compensate for it or I'll pay somebody else
Correct.
to compensate for it. And it sounds like a very elegant approach, but and by the way, you could also do other things. You could say, you know what, I'm not going to reduce carbon, but I'll put some efforts to reduce domestic violence. Let
Correct.
people, there's lots of ways to make the world better, right? It's not just carbon. But anyway, so it sounds like a really interesting direction, which you say, first of all, it's a recognition that emitting carbon is undesirable. It's recognizing that it's not possible to reduce it to, for everybody to reduce it to zero. And so I'm going to make up for it in some way, adding something to the environment, or adding something to kids with, to people with Parkinson, or, whatever. Not everybody likes this approach, right? Why don't people like it?
People accuse this mechanism as a way to still allow for pollution. So it is sometimes perceived as a good deed to compensate for to allow continuous bad deeds to continue. And so there's a accusation that carbon credits are a license to pollute, that you can do one act of good service and that absolves you from all morality challenges.
That's right.
But in actuality, they're claiming that that's not true. That's not good enough, basically,
Yeah.
is the accusation.
So we have these general things called harm reduction. And harm reduction is basically saying we're not solving the problem, we're just reducing the harm. And there are lots of cases where people are morally very, very tough. It's very, very tough to do harm reduction. For example, needle exchange programs for people who are addicted to heroin. You can say, oh, I really want people to stop needle exchange. You say, oh, I'm not comfortable with this because I'm helping them in some way. So there was a paper a few years ago that explored all kinds of really painful ways to do harm reduction. So let me give you two examples. Imagine that you find out that there's a lot of killing in city X between gangs, and gangs also shoot a lot of innocent people. They shoot, they run, they don't have to do it. And the city has tried things for 20 years, and they can't reduce that. So now there's a new program out there that they've tested, and it works. And the program is to train the gang members to hit better, so that they would kill the people that they want, and they would kill less the bystanders. And the question is, would you advocate to roll this program?
I mean, I would need, yeah, I would need to look at the data. I mean, if
assume for the sake,
right,
this is a paper in philosophy. So, but
sure.
assume for the discussion that this method works. It's the best method we have so far. It's tough. It's tough, right? Because you're saying I'm accepting these terrible things of killing bystanders. Here's a tougher one. Ready? Sadly, very sadly, there are some men that beat their significant other and their kids. There are some men that we see no way of reducing it. And there was a program that was tested. Again, this is hypothetical, just for the thought experiment, that showed that you can train these terrible men to hit their significant other and kids in a way that creates less damage. So you teach them how to hit in a less damaging way. Would you advocate to rolling out this program?
To me, there are short-term and long-term solutions for things that we need to change. And so these hypotheticals, I think, are highlighting short-term solutions for much bigger problems. So for me personally, I would say if something is going to curb a negative experience today, we should implement it. And then we should continue to explore ways to have a more holistic and long-term impact. So
Right.
is foster care something that we could be addressing, things like that. So that would be my politically correct response to that.
Not just political correct response, but I brought up these two difficult cases because they're very much kind of in your play area, where you say, look, we have solutions that are not perfect, but they get us to make progress. And what are we going to do? Are we going to make zero progress? Or are we going to adopt some short-term, imperfect, sometimes offensive solutions, but we're going to make progress? What is more important here, the morality or the progress? And your approach is exactly what you said now, right? It doesn't have to be about climate. It's about saying, if we have a way to make progress, we should make progress. Now, let's not accept that and then say we're not going to do anything else. Let's also make the long-term issues. And in climate, the moment it becomes ideological. I'll give another example. I worked with organizations that try to improve kids' nutrition in Africa. And these are lots of wonderful NGOs with wonderful people. And they were very much, they hate Nestle with passion. They hate the milk substitutes with passion. But Nestle is a big company. They're a tiny organization. By not willing to work with Nestle, like it's teaming up with the devil for them to work with Nestle, they are dramatically underperforming compared to what they could have done. Nestle is feeding the world. I don't know what percentage of the world is fed by Nestle, but distribution channels, I mean, you name it, what happens with a big organization. By not willing morally to work with them, they're basically shooting themselves in both feet and in at least one hand. So in your view, this is a very general problem. This is a very general problem of saying, as people get to be more moral and they get to attack the other perspectives, we're basically making less progress, and people are afraid to offer solutions because they know they'll get attacked.
Yeah, I would also say that those moral criticisms that are often given out, there aren't boundaries or clear parameters put in place when those accusations go out. So you might say you've partnered with a polluter, therefore you aren't aligned with climate impact. But first, you must partner with polluters if you want to end pollution. And secondly, saying that an organization can or cannot partner with a polluter, otherwise they'll lose a certification or they'll be exiled from the club, does not put a path forward in place for anyone. It simply just shuns those that can make huge decisions from the movement. And I see that a lot with oil and gas. There's initiatives where ad agencies are not allowed to partner with oil and gas entities if they want to claim to be a climate forward ad agency. But there aren't any rules around what is an oil and gas company. Is that a 85% fossil fuel, 15% renewable? What are the actual guidelines in place so that this ad agency can make informed decisions on what's best for purposefulness and progress? And without those boundaries, we don't know how to operate, which is what I'm stressing for those that are reading the book, that we must be very clear in what we mean by accountability so that people can continue to progress.
Yeah. So I think that your main point is about how not to get our ideology to slow us down on the path for progress, and how not to let our ideology get us to be unkind to people who are trying to make progress, and even to encourage progress. So so let's say you come with all of this, you come to a company. It's a manufacturer of some sort, and you want to encourage them to worry worry less about cancel culture, worry less about this, and stick more to their guns and make progress. What kind of a discussion would you have with the CEO and with the employees?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the CEO and employees, because one of the first things that's often missed is having internal conversations first. A lot of times there are siloed teams that are working on various initiatives within an organization, but they're very often not speaking to one another. And so you've got the sustainability team working on whatever KPIs they're trying to achieve that year, and then marketing working on their own KPIs and trying to translate growth and progress in a way that's catchy and can be best received by the various stakeholders they're looking to engage, but they're often not working alongside one another. And so internal conversations are first and foremost, and establishing what those clear goals and objectives are that the teams collectively can achieve and progress towards. And so there's various standards and targets that can be utilized and ways that you can put those boundaries and goals in place, but making sure that your goals are based on science and data, and that internal and external stakeholder input is the first step that I would recommend that teams do if they want to actually be accurate and transparent about how they're working towards said goals.
Okay. So now you have the CEO and you're in discussion with them. And what do you mostly want them to do? What do you like? What kind of mindsets do you want to change in them?
Making sure that they've got clarity behind their goals and being confident in talking about working towards them, that they aren't just trying to claim perfection, but that they're speaking about the journey moving forward and progressing forward to whatever those goals are that they've aligned to, whether it's a net zero target. Let's say that they want to be net zero by 2035 or something of that sort. Establish what the goal is, and then speak eloquently on the way that you're progressing forward and being really bold and confident in those efforts, because oftentimes it's that perfection and that goal of perfection and trying to put this this, this air of being a climate leader out into the world without actually backing it up with accurate and transparent data.
Yeah, and I think that the second thing you want them to do is to basically experiment more, or be more bold, or take more risks, and be okay if things don't work out. Right? It's a new journey.
I mean, that's the scientific method, right? We put a hypothesis forward, we test against it, and then we iterate to make sure that we're continuing to move forward. And so that's what we're doing. I think where it gets very complicated is we're in a time of urgency. And so a lot of us are ready to open up The Guardian tomorrow and find out climate change is no longer a problem. And these 10 companies are the ones that solved it for everyone. And that's just simply not the case. And so we have to acknowledge that we are in a time of stress, urgency, and fear, but that shouldn't cripple us in making us act a specific way and shame others, but to be really bold and confident in us trying new things and trying to be better each and every day.
Yeah. So the CEO, you say, have goals, clear, think about the path, not the outcome. Pose hypotheses, test them, improve along the way, and communicate. What do you tell the employees? I mean, now we're kind of on the cancel culture side. How do you get the employees to support this approach of experimentation, maybe failure, maybe something that is not ideal, but moving forward? How do you get people to abandon these very natural instincts for cancel culture and say, if your leader is trying to make progress, even if it's not the progress you like, and even if it's not the ideal, and if it's a hypothesis, it's not for sure would work out. How do you get people to move from the negative mindset of cancel culture to the positive mindset of supporting the organization?
Yeah, I have 5 questions that I put in the book that help really level set what your sole objective is when you're engaging with whether it's this hypothetical CEO or your family member that has various different viewpoints than you do. So first and foremost, are you open to questioning your own beliefs, or are you operating from a position of certainty? So if you're coming into every conversation with you're right and they're wrong, you're not open to an open dialogue or conversation. You're simply just looking for an opportunity to preach your own beliefs onto someone else. And so that's a really good first step to just understand, are you open to having a conversation? And then, if so, can you accurately present the other person's perspective in a way that they would recognize, or are you trying to make them look weak? So, are you accusing the CEO of being gluttonous and greedy, or is there an actual way that you can talk to the amount of employees that they're trying to engage with, or the various amount of profitability metrics that they're trying to achieve, and really showcase the other person's viewpoint in a way that they would recognize and agree with? I would also stress that question if you're attacking an individual or an entity, or are you attacking an idea? And a lot
Mhm.
of times we attack an organization or a person because we find as if they've gone against our value system. But what we should be actually attacking is that idea or that infraction against your values. So it's not Shell is doing XYZ that's causing thousands of species to go into extinction. What you are actually attacking is you don't like protecting various environments, that you want to make sure that you are able to protect the world around you as it is today, and you don't want to see the environment to continue to degrade. And so making sure that you're attacking an idea versus an entity. And then the last two is, are you willing to use extreme measures against those who disagree with you? That's something that I often stress, because you can see climate activists that are incredibly passionate about this movement act in ways of violence or in vandalism, and it doesn't actually move the movement forward. It actually moves it backwards because it isolates those from the movement. And if you're feeling that level of rage or passion, it's entirely justified. But at the same time, you need to understand what your boundaries are to understand if now is the time to have a conversation or to take action. so that it leads to an outcome you're looking for. And then the last one is, can I specify the evidence that would change my position, or is my perspective immovable? And that's something that if an employee is frustrated by their organization's actions, can they talk about a way that they too can grow and understand and collaborate? And can you be specific in what that would entail so that that can then be communicated to all of the various decision makers that are putting these actions in place? And so if you're able to
My
kind of level
yeah
set your actions that way, that's the best way to move
yeah
forward.
my phrase for the last one you said is, what would it take to change your mind? What give me that. But so you brought lots of interesting questions. One that I find very very appealing is to think about the extremity of the action. And it's very bizarre, right? Because if you ask people in the last 5 years how many discussions you had with people where you were fighting with them to try and convince them how wrong they are, how many of those were successful?
Right.
Or you say, when was the last time that violent activity got people on the other side to say, you know what, you're right? Like I'll give an example. If Macron, when COVID was around, he said that the people in France who are not taking the vaccine are not French. Very derogatory. What did he think that those people would do? Say, oh, you're saying we're not French, let's us change all of a sudden, right? If there's attack by activists on company X, what are the chances that company X will say, oh, we're mending our ways? Like, it's this really disconnect where you say to people say, okay, if I do this, they'll change their mind. And then you say, but if you were on the other side and somebody attacked you, what would you do? Would you say, oh, I'm changing my mind? Like, I'm thinking now about terrorism. Terrorism always gets everybody to be more polarized. Like, what do you think will happen when you kill, kidnap, damage? That the other side would say, okay, we're giving up? No, we're just getting stronger into our opinions. We are caving in. We are more hating. We're less accepting. So there's something about this cycle of attack that is very, very unhelpful, but it's kind of very natural for human beings, right? We're really fighting against our, like, having an ideology is very nice, but it's stopping us. And wanting to be all in is very nice, but it's stopping us. Wanting to be full out with the extent of our opinions and ideas and being true to ourselves is very nice, but it's not effective. Maybe the title of the book should be "Calm Down." If you want to make progress, calm down first. Come to 10,000, and only then.
Yeah.
So, what are the reactions of people? Are you? The book came out only recently, but you've been thinking about this for a while.
Yes.
Have you been able to get people to calm down? Have you been able to get people to be less angry, vindictive, more collaborative, less judgmental?
Yes. I would also just say myself has been a fantastic case study in the application of the book. I mean, it's been somewhat therapeutic for me. I have been called a climate optimist, which I would have never defined myself as that 2 years ago. People keep telling me how optimistic I am and how much drive I have, and it's so nice to hear that feedback, but I attribute that to me being able to write this book. I think writing a book, as you know, it gives you an opportunity to not just preach your ideas outwardly like you could do on a podcast or on a stage. It gives you the time and the ability to really craft full thoughts and think deeply about the things that you believe in and why, and proving them and finding sources to back it up. And I, through this exploration, have found that optimism and collaboration will truly solve climate change. And I think if we continue to speak about that and show that as a tool that works, when we've now proven that extremism does not, or fighting or choosing a ego driven side does not work, then we can actually continue to guide people to adopt this type of mindset and patience, really.
Yeah. And has it worked for you in other areas of life, or is it limited to this approach is limited to working on climate? Like, is it also working out in your overall political view, things at home?
Yeah, I mean, I we can see in the United States, polarization has changed the entire course of history right now. And I am empathetic, and it's difficult at times, but I'm empathetic to those that were told a story that aligned with what their views are, having financial security being one of them. I'm empathetic to those that chose to make political decisions based on a promise because it could satisfy the goals and needs of their immediate family and loved ones. I can be empathetic towards that. Does that mean that I agree with the actions that a lot of my fellow citizens took a few months ago? No, but at the same time, I'm here. I'm here in this situation right now. And so I can either reach across the aisle and help my neighbor and show what it means to be a positive human being that cares about others. And my only goal is to hope that that will be infectious and that that will spread. And so yes, because of the book, I'm a fantastic neighbor and parent and friend. And, yeah, I've reached enlightenment because of it.
Very good. So remind us all the name of the book, and do you have a copy there you can show us?
Yes, I do. It is Cancel Culture and Climate, and it's available on Amazon and some local bookstores. And then you can also find more information about it at cancelcultureandclimate.com. I'm going to bend over and grab it. I have it here.
Very good. And are
It's
you
also
encouraging people to get an ebook so it's less easier, better for the environment?
there's an ebook. There's a few chapters that are available for free out there too. I did a expose with We Don't Have Time, and they shared a few chapters about greenwashing and green hushing, and all of the various symptoms that are coming out of this kind of fear-driven, polarized culture. But happy to talk about it anytime. I host workshops on it, and I just hope that it will provide value to those that read it.
Very good. Jenny, lovely to talk to you. Good
Thank
luck
you.
in your well, finishing this adventure and then the next one.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll stay in touch.
Thank you.